So the music reaction channel Lost in Vegas made some interesting points about progressive metal recently. In this video I want to do my best to try and explain the appeal of progressive metal. Music is obviously very subjective and I don't expect to change anyone's mind here, but I do hope to help some people understand why some folk like progressive metal. Well, why I like it at least. I've yet to get into Dream Theater or Mastodon, and I only just started listening to Opeth last year, and I know very little about music theory. So I hope that from a layman's point of view I can explain why I like prog without drowning you in incomprehensible music snob jargon like I would if I were any kind of expert on this subject. Now I think the guys were spot on in their Opeth reaction in that the song is almost like the soundtrack to a play and has different acts. But in their recent video reacting to System of a Down, they made a point about prioritising the emotions that music portrays rather than the technical ability of the musician. Now, I normally agree with this, and frankly, I couldn't give a fuck less how hard it is to play if there's no passion to it. It's kinda like how I often struggle to care about talented indie wrestler with absolutely no personality number 8635. What they said here, however, was more specifically that because prog fans say they have to come back to songs to appreciate them, they're kidding themselves about how much they actually like the music.
I've seen a couple people in the song, especially on the Mastodon video. There was a couple people that were saying like, man, you know, it took me about 100 times to listen to Mastodon, but after about 100 times, I liked it.
I know where you're going.
And I'm like, so if you have to listen to something 100 times in order to enjoy it, do you really
beat you into submission?
Right. Like, do you really enjoy it, or are you forcing yourself to enjoy it because it's a prog song and it's different and you want to be maybe exclusive? You want to be, you know, a part of this group of people that just like something different for the sake of liking something different.
Now, I'm not going to deny, people like this absolutely do exist. But they think Mastodon are too fucking mainstream. We're talking that it's not a real song unless it's 30 minutes long with a fucking bagpipe interlude crowd. We all delude ourselves on occasion. As a Megadeth fanboy myself, I've gone through delusional phases of claiming that Dave Mustaine can sing, but that's down to one individual, and I seriously doubt that Mastodon would have acquired a sizable fan base through delusion alone. Incidentally, if you listen to the same song over and over, you're more likely to resent it than like it. Why else do you think people started foaming at the mouth with rage at Justin Bieber? That's because for a dark period in 2010, his otherwise forgettable mediocrity was inescapable. Music is weird in that you can listen to a song that you thought was filler, and then it can come up on shuffle a year later, and you suddenly wonder how you missed its brilliance. That's why any music critic who farts out an album review on release day isn't worth listening to. When a song is 10 minutes long, you're bound to miss plenty of stuff the first time around. So it's no surprise to me that on a channel dedicated to first time reactions to music, you might not fully appreciate prog. But if you're ever curious and decide to go back to a song, there's a certain mindset that I would recommend you get into that helped me appreciate bands like Opeth. When you say it has acts and would fit a play, you're so close to getting it, but you're just not quite there. You see, the music is the play. The music itself is taking you on a journey and it's telling you a story. As you said in your reaction, this is the sort of music you levitate to. Some music is good at the gym, some is good in a club, and some is best appreciated when it's actively listened to and you let the music carry you off. Essentially, it's a lot like classical music. Okay, please hear me out. There are plenty of classical pieces which tell a story through music. Let's take Danse Macabre for example. Now you won't pick up on what it's about purely from listening to it, but once you know the context and understand the Burns poem it's based upon, you can start to picture what's happening as you listen. For example, there's a section which gets faster and faster to suggest that Tam O'Shanter is being chased by witches. As you do. With this mindset, let's re-examine Ghost of Perdition based on the assumption that it's about an exorcism. It might not be, but I prefer to try and figure lyrics out for myself. The introductory notes set a foreboding tone and are sharply interrupted by Mikael Åkerfeldt's amazing growls. I've always imagined that the growls in this song are the voice of the demon which has possessed the girl. Then, when the song makes its transition into the first clean bit, I like to think of this as the priest chanting something and the subsequent growls are the demon trying to resist. The mellow part is a brief moment of calm before the priest has to work to keep the demon out of her. Then when Big Mikey Akerfield is all like, I assume at that point this possessive force has escaped and is pretty much a floating spectre in the middle of the room, and he is not a happy boy. He has a bit of a shout and then fucks off gracefully, never to be seen again. I interpret it this way because perdition is defined as a state of eternal punishment and damnation into which a sinful and unrepentant person passes after death. So I imagine that a ghost of perdition would be the spirit of a tortured soul. Now, of course, that's just a theory. A game theory. No, it's just my interpretation. But do you see how much you can get out of one song? If you go in with that mindset, it's honestly quite fun to analyse songs and figure out what the musicians are getting at. It requires a bit of concentration, but honestly it's worth it and you can get some really good experiences out of it. Right, well, that was a bit rambly, but I hope I made my point and perhaps now you understand why some people like progressive metal. In the event that Lost in Vegas actually see this video, keep up the good work lads, and react to Halo by Machine Head at some point. I think you'd really appreciate that song. It's got a good groove, quite a bit of melody, and the growls are in key like Gojira. Also, for the 1st of April, you have to react to You Suffer by Napalm Death. That would just be perfect. Oh, and lastly, in case you were wondering what accent the silly foreigner has, I'm Scottish, not Irish. And yes, there is a difference.